Good morning and welcome to the new edition of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. We are finding that this era of politically correctness is marked by a clear act of rabid populism. As a matter of fact, what they call populism is not populism, but is downright obnoxious, despicable behavior. The real liberal issues that permeated the human consciousness are no longer the mainstay of the liberals. But the liberals, infected by populism, infected by loss of sanity, and infected by socialism, have come up with such dangerous postulates that they strike at the very root of humanity. And the examples of that stupidity are galore. The Prime Minister of Canada, the President of France, and the Prime Minister of England have by turns banned single use straws, plastic straws. And what they say? Use paper straws. As I remarked in one of my comments, that paper straws are still more harmful for the simple reason you are going to cut the trees to make the paper straws. And pollution caused by manufacture of the paper straws, apart from the deforestation, would be humongous. Maybe the disposal is less troublesome, but the thing would be bad. Leave that aside. We know that sexual depredation and pedophilia are increasing. And there's an organization called Pedophile Information Exchange. And this PIE, Pedophile Information Exchange, influences policy making in most of the countries, especially in England. And do you know what the latest National Council for Civil Liberty has come up with? Yesterday I had told you that American Council for Civil Liberties is objecting to severe punishment of the rapists. And here the National Council for Civil Liberties says that pedophilia is fully justified. As a matter of fact, when PIA said that the best way to finish off pedophilia, reduce the age of consent. It was 18 at one time, 13 now in most of the countries, and maybe they wanted to make it to 4 or 5. But the officials say that the age of consent should be reduced, and the pedophilia love should not be deemed a crime. And it was the former health UK, Patricia Hewitt, who advocated it. Now, the report by NCCL, National Council for Civil Liberties, was submitted for criminal law revision. And if you read that report, you'll be shocked. The report says, and I quote, when both partners are aged 10 or over and under 14, and they commit a consensual sexual act, it should not be an offense. So if the partners are under the age of 14 and they can have sex, it's not pedophilia. And they go on in this rant further. As the age of the consent is arbitrary, we propose an overlap of 2 years on either side of 14. So it can be 12 even, it can be 16, but the people who indulge in sex at that time, they are not committing a crime. This would be for the consensual sex, but they take a leap forward. And the leap is that there is no evidence that the sexual victimization of a child has any subsequent effect on the child who has been molested. That means all the psychological studies, all the studies by neuroscientists, psychologists, psychiatrists saying that the child who is a victim of molestation, sexual exploitation, has a warped personality, are wrong according to this statement, because the sex with the children does them no harm. And that is a statement coming from National Council for Civil Liberties. Now, I fail to understand, why don't we change the name? National Council for Civil Liberties should be National Council for Criminal Liberties. You can take any liberty with a crime, commit a crime, and get away with it. As a matter of fact, they say there are lies, damn lies, and statistics. And statistics can be compiled either way. You pick up 100 children who have been molested and see what they have achieved after, say, 20 years or 30 years in the prime of life, and that's a concern. So there's no effect on that. And we have seen in this Me Too movement that the people have come up who are very well established in life, that they were molested when they were kids and they were okay. So that gives some substance to what the National Council for Civil Liberties states. But if we look at the law and order figures and the number of crimes committed by the victims are so many that imagination staggers. And that is what the reality is. Even if I assume, for the sake of argument, that there is no effect of the sexual exploitation, later on, the torture, the mental agony, the shock that the child undergoes, is that not a crime? But the National Council for Civil Liberties says it should not be a crime. And then they further go on. The real need is a change in the attitude which assumes that all cases of pedophilia cause a damage. In cases the damage is not there, does not mean that there is no damage at all. And in fact, this is promoting something which is basically wrong, criminal, inhuman. But they want to change the very concept of the law. The present legal penalties according to National Council for Civil Liberties, and you can be sure this shall be pronounced by all the Human Rights Commission and everybody, right for the pedophiles. And they'll say that the penalties are too high because they reinforce misinformation and prejudice. The duty of the court should be to inquire into the relevant circumstances with the intention not meeting out a severe punishment, but the best intentional solution of the child and the pedophile. So the rights of the pedophile take precedence over the crime that the pedophile has committed. And, excuse me, please. And that is a crux of the problem, and thereby hangs the tail. The courts are meant to implement law. The courts are meant to award punishment for a wrong done. And the courts in most of the countries are already sickeningly lenient to the criminals. We have seen here in Canada that people have committed murder and have gone away scot-free, pleading temporary insanity. There was a case on a Greyhound bus. A passenger killed a co-passenger and started eating that passenger. Spent 1 year in psychiatry ward and then walks away free. People have committed murder and got away with that. People have committed crime, insanity, and got away with that. For the simple reason that they were always availability of legal counsel, the lawyers, the attorneys, who would purchase some psychologist services, present evidence that this man had been victimized by some predator. He had a bad mother, he had a domineering father, and that's why the crime is not his crime. And now add to that okay, the child has been molested, well, it's not going to affect him after 30 years. So why bother? Let the criminal go away. The problem is that the concept of the politically correctness, which started as a mark of civilization and decent human relationship, has degenerated into protection for the wrongdoers, for the criminals, and for all the abhorrent, obnoxious things. The quest for liberalism is no longer liberalism of the soul, of the human mind. Even today, the mind, the working of the thought, would be controlled if there was a thought processing machine. You are not allowed to make a cartoon. We have seen it, that the cartoon makers have been killed. They have been arrested. They have been decapitated. But you can wreck the psyche of a child to satisfy the lust of a pedophile, and the National Councils of Civil Liberties, the American Council of Civil Liberties, would condone that and maybe later on institute an award for awarding that person who established a record in child molestation. To what level of bestiality shall we fall down? To what level of inhumanity shall we fall down? Are we going to be worse than animals? Yes. if the liberals have their way, we would be. It is shocking and it is terribly inhuman. Think about it. Are we not going too far? Why can't we say enough is enough? Let's be human beings. Let's not condone such violence. Thank you.